Hello everyone, it's Solomon, and I have a story for you, the story of the Cheese Bandit. In conjunction with attending classes, I also work. Where I worked at the time of this story is not really relevant, but I was the only male worker in my position. I had all female co-workers, and in the history of the firm I was with, there had only been one male that worked in that department, that being me, which seemed fairly random. But because of this, I was often just referred to as the guy, or as he, with statements like, "Hey, do you know where he is?" etc., etc. And this becomes relevant later, I promise. So in the office, we had a fridge and a cabinet that was filled with soda and snacks at relatively reasonable prices. Obviously, you needed to label everything in the refrigerator, because if you didn't, someone might put money in the can, assuming it was for sale. The items weren't heavily priced at all. A cup of ramen was $1, can of soda or water was 50 cents, candies $1, cheese 50 cents. And the can was in the fridge for people to pay for the food that they took with them. Often I would get home from class and I just didn't feel like preparing a meal for the day. So I would just use $2 to get a lunch, a drink, but that would only cost $1.50, and I didn't really want to carry around the pocket change or go fishing through the cup for 50 cents. So I would try to find something to spend the 50 cents on, and only a few things were 50 cents, one of which being cheese. So I'd finish my meal with a little bit of cheese from the fridge. No big deal, right? I paid for the meal and then would go back to the rest of my 12-hour shift. But one day, I come to the office and see plastered everywhere is the picture of a cheese with a bandit mask, with the line saying, "Wanton, the Cheese Bandit. We'll give cash reward for information that aids to the capture of the Cheese Bandit." And I'm a little beyond confused. This is incredibly childish. And so I go to the break room, and also there, all over the place, there is a Cheese Bandit wanted posters. And they were just little edited pieces of cheese to look like criminals, something that they clearly made on company time. And there was one such wanted poster plastered right on the fridge. I look inside the fridge and there's also a pretty nasty letter from Linda, saying that they had marked every single piece of individual cheese and did not appreciate someone stealing their cheese, and that they would be escalating this incident to the head of HR if they needed to, and that they would find the responsible party. Now, I instantly knew they were referring to me, but I checked to see if the cheese containers were labeled, and they weren't, and I had paid for every cheese I had taken. So Linda didn't label their items, and then was shocked that people tried to buy the cheese seemingly advertised on the front of the fridge. Now, usually in a situation like this, I would just suggest we talk about what happened and have a logical, reasonable conversation. But Linda was clearly not in a rational or logical mood. A logical person would have just brought a bag or container and put their cheese in it, and then labeled that said container. This way, if someone was going through their stuff, they would know, because they would have to have opened it, and there would be missing items from it. Or, barring that, just stop putting their cheese inside the refrigerator. But clearly, they were incredibly emotional about what they felt was righteous cheese-based indignation. So instead, they assumed someone was stealing their unlabeled items. So a level-headed, reasonable conversation didn't exactly seem like a viable option to me. I also knew they would likely suspect me, the guy. Now, as rational as Linda was being, I didn't want them to have the cheese they paid for taken from them with no compensation. I'm no thief. But I also didn't like the insinuation that one of us had been stealing from each other, which I felt added to this unnecessarily toxic element to the workplace. So I decided to take care of both issues at once. I bought a ton of cheese, and I thought I would leave it there for Linda in the fridge with a little comedic letter to remind people how petty and ridiculous this whole situation really was. I was pretty heavily tempted to alter the plum poem by William Carlos Williams to be cheese-themed instead, but I was fairly certain that they wouldn't get the reference. So I thought it would be better to write my own, but I'm fairly verbose in my writing style, and I'm pretty distinct and often highly proper. I know my propensity towards sentences that were grammatically correct in writing would just be a dead giveaway to my identity. So I needed to write a letter in a way that made me seem drastically less intelligent, significantly less well-read, while still being witty and clever. So I wrote out a draft with all the points I wanted to articulate. Then I rewrote it with a much lower reading level. Then I had some people review my work to determine how effective it was, and made a few more revisions, and the final product read something like this. A response of the cheese caper. No intentional theft has occurred. A sign on the refrigerator door says cheese is 50 cents. I believed I was purchasing the cheese. I apologize for my ignorance and whatever issues and incredible stress this may have caused you. I realize my apology does not solve the issue of your missing cheese, so in an effort to atone, I am replacing it with many times interest, the cheese I have erroneously consumed. I hope this satisfactorily resolves the cheese crisis. Sincerely, the Cheese Bandit. I was pleased with the final product, but after composing the letter I still needed to present it. But then my handwriting would be a dead giveaway, and printing it would make the response seem a little too premeditated. So, I had a female friend of mine transcribe the letter with loopy and attractive penmanship. So now it looked like it could have been any number of the people in the building. And then I went to the store and purchased a large assortment of cheese. Now, I actually wasn't at work for about 2 weeks because of some physical health issues, and I had left the day the letter was posted, so as far as anyone was concerned, I actually hadn't seen it, nor would I be back for some time. But I got up early in the morning. I double-checked to make sure no one saw me, and I made my way very stealthily into the break room. I posted my letter on the fridge, filled the drawer with cheese, and went home to get some sleep because my health was legitimately very poor at the time. When I returned a week later, I found all the wanted posters had been taken down, and everyone told me about the mysterious Cheese Bandit. I acted a bit confused on the situation and had them inform me about the details. Many of them laughed at Linda for being so dramatic about food they didn't label. No matter how they wanted to claim they did, they clearly weren't labeling every individual piece of cheese like they claimed they had done. And the letter I wrote made people laugh and heavily de-escalated the situation, which was the whole point. And apparently after Linda read the letter, she took down all of her wanted signs, removed her nasty letter, and yes, took away my response as well, clearly a little embarrassed about making a scene over nothing. Later that year, during the holiday season, there was a large pack of assorted cheese labeled "Free Cheese, courtesy of the Cheese Bandit." Most people ended up siding with the charming and devilish Cheese Bandit, and their identity was never discovered, though there was some heavy speculation on who she might be. I guess it will remain an office mystery. A pretty Gouda mystery.